Cantonese cuisine. It comes from Guangdong province in southern China, and it is probably the style most people outside China have tasted first. Cantonese cooking is known for its lightness. Chefs here prefer to steam, stir-fry, and roast rather than load dishes with heavy spices. The goal is always to let the natural flavor of the ingredients speak. Dim sum, those small plates of dumplings, rice rolls, and buns served with tea, is a Cantonese tradition. So is roast duck with its lacquered skin, and steamed fish finished with just a little ginger and soy. Sichuan cuisine. It comes from the landlocked Sichuan Basin in southwest China, a region of humid summers and cold winters. The cooking here is bold and unapologetic. The most defining ingredient is the Sichuan peppercorn, which does not just add heat. It creates a numbing, tingling sensation on the tongue that locals call ma la, meaning numb and spicy together. Dishes like mapo tofu, twice-cooked pork, and hot pot are built on layers of chili oil, fermented bean paste, and that electric peppercorn. The intensity is intentional. People in the region say the heat helps the body push out dampness from the climate. Shandong cuisine. It is considered the oldest of the major Chinese culinary traditions and has had more influence on northern Chinese cooking than almost any other style. Shandong sits on the eastern coast, and the proximity to the sea shows seafood, particularly shellfish and saltwater fish, features heavily. The cooking tends to be savory and direct, using vinegar, garlic, and scallions as core flavors. Braised dishes are common, slow-cooked until the sauce becomes rich and glossy. Many of the techniques used in Beijing's imperial kitchens were borrowed directly from Shandong chefs who moved north centuries ago. Jiangsu cuisine. This style comes from the Yangtze River Delta region, an area historically wealthy and refined. The cooking reflects that background. Jiangsu dishes are delicate, carefully plated, and built on subtle sweetness balanced against savory depth. Braising and stewing are preferred methods, and the results are often described as soft and tender without being heavy. The famous dish called lion's head, large pork meatballs braised slowly in a clay pot, captures the style well. Sugar appears in many savory dishes here, not to make them sweet exactly, but to round out the flavor in a way that feels almost quiet. Zhejiang cuisine. Neighboring Jiangsu along the eastern coast, Zhejiang shares some of the same lightness but has its own identity. Fresh ingredients are treated with great care, and the cooking avoids heavy oil or aggressive seasoning. Westlake fish in vinegar sauce is one of the most recognized dishes. The fish is poached and finished with a sweet-sour glaze that is gentle rather than sharp. Hangzhou, the provincial capital, has long been celebrated as one of China's most beautiful cities, and the food carries something of that reputation for elegance. Preserved and cured ingredients also appear often, adding depth without overpowering the dish. Fujian cuisine. Fujian sits on the southeastern coast, directly across from Taiwan, and the sea has always shaped the way people cook here. Seafood dominates, and the broth-based cooking style is unlike most other regional traditions. Many Fujian dishes are built around clear, flavorful soups and light umami-rich sauces. One of the most famous preparations, Buddha jumps over the wall, is a complex stew made from dozens of ingredients including abalone, sea cucumber, and shark fin, slow-cooked in a sealed vessel. Fujian immigrants carried their cooking traditions across Southeast Asia, which is why echoes of this style appear in the cuisines of the Philippines, Malaysia, and Singapore. Hunan cuisine. Often compared to Sichuan because of its heat, Hunan cooking is actually quite different in character. Where Sichuan relies on the numbing peppercorn and oil-based sauces, Hunan uses fresh and dried chilies more directly, producing a sharp, clean spiciness rather than a tingly one. The food here tends to be smokier, sourer, and more straightforward in its fire. Cured and smoked meats are common, often cooked with chilies and fermented black beans. Mao Zedong, who was born in Hunan, was famously devoted to the food of his home province, and is said to have believed that the more chili you could eat, the more revolutionary your spirit. Anhui cuisine. This inland style is one of the lesser-known traditions outside China, but it has a long history and a distinct identity built around mountain ingredients. Wild herbs, bamboo shoots, mushrooms, and freshwater fish are central to Anhui cooking. The flavor profile tends toward earthy and savory, with a preference for slow-cooked dishes that develop deep, concentrated tastes. Preserved ingredients appear frequently, partly out of necessity in a landlocked region, and partly because the fermentation and drying processes create flavors the cuisine values highly. The cooking is not showy, but it rewards attention. Beijing cuisine. The capital's food tradition was shaped by centuries of imperial rule and the constant arrival of ingredients and techniques from across the country. The most iconic dish is Peking duck, whole duck dried, glazed with a maltose syrup and roasted in a wood-fired oven until the skin turns amber and shatters at the touch. It is served in thin pancakes with scallion and hoisin sauce. Beyond duck, Beijing cooking draws heavily on wheat rather than rice, so noodles, steamed buns, and flatbreads appear everywhere. The flavors tend to be robust, often built on soy paste, sesame, and vinegar. Shanghai cuisine. The city's cooking is a relatively recent tradition compared to older regional styles, but it has a strong personality. Shanghai food leans sweet, perhaps more than any other major Chinese cuisine. Soy sauce, sugar, and Shaoxing rice wine are the building blocks of many dishes, creating sauces that are dark, glossy, and deeply savory with that characteristic sweetness underneath. Red braised pork belly, cooked slowly until the fat becomes silken and the meat almost melts, is Shanghai's most beloved dish. The city's history as an international port also left traces, and the cuisine absorbed influences from across China and beyond without losing its own direction. Xinjiang cuisine. This comes from the far northwest, a region where Chinese and Central Asian cultures have long overlapped. The food reflects that meeting point. Lamb is the dominant meat, cooked on skewers over open flame, braised in cumin and chili, or layered with rice and vegetables in a dish called polo that resembles the pilaf found across Central Asia. Flatbreads, hand-pulled noodles, and dried fruits and nuts appear regularly. The spicing is heavier and more aromatic than in most Chinese cooking. Cumin, coriander, and dried chili play major roles. The flavors are direct and satisfying, shaped by a landscape of desert and grassland rather than river delta or mountain forest. Yunnan cuisine. Yunnan is one of the most biodiverse provinces in China, bordering Myanmar, Laos, and Vietnam, and the food captures that variety. Wild mushrooms found in the mountains here are considered among the finest in the world, and they appear across the cuisine in soups, stir-fries, and hot pots. Rice is central, often eaten as pressed cakes or cooked into porridge. Crossing the bridge noodles, a bowl of rich broth served separately from raw ingredients that the diner cooks tableside, is perhaps the most recognizable Yunnan dish. The cuisine also reflects the influence of the many ethnic minority groups who live across the province, each contributing their own ingredients and techniques to a tradition that refuses easy definition.